Hello. Hello. Welcome to this episode of The Unconditioned Life. I'm Linda Downey, and I'm a transformational health and spiritual coach working with women specifically, or most of the time anyway, on leaving the pain of their past behind, overcoming stress and overwhelm, creating a joyful and vibrant future that they love to live in. So that's who you're listening to. This is streaming in social media in multiple places and on the podcast, The Unconditioned Life. And today's episode is all about self-sabotage. Like what's really going on when we have things that we want to do, we are quite capable, and yet we find ourselves never really getting unstuck and continuing to sabotage ourselves. So that's what today's conversation is about. If that's what you're interested in, you're in the right place. And I would love for you to say hello. Let me know where you're listening from, maybe where you're listening, if it's on social media or the podcast or YouTube, wherever, would be great. So thank you for listening. And if I don't see your comments in the moment, because this is going multiple places, I will go back and look, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments that you have. And it's National Puppy Day today. So that was a hello from one of mine. So anyway, okay, self-sabotage. So if you're here and you want to drop a comment, like what are the things that you have found yourself sabotaging in your life? The things that you know you could do, or maybe you're not so sure you could do them, but you want to do them. So it might be just regular old procrastination, right? I procrastinate on things, projects around my house or things at work. I feel like I could be further along in my career. I could be further along in moving up the corporate ladder, things like that. Or maybe it's around relationships. Maybe you tend to find yourself in the same kinds of relationships over and over and over. Different version of the same kind of person, or maybe very different people, but the way you feel in the relationship is the same. Like, one person's a workaholic, another person just plays golf all the time, but either way, you end up feeling alone. So it might be somewhere there, like I keep choosing the same kinds of people. Or maybe it's in personal goals, like around your health. Like every year, New Year's Day comes and I have these goals and I stick with them for only so long. And pretty quickly, by the time we're in the end of March, I'm back in my typical pattern. So those are some common places that people feel like they self-sabotage. So I'm just curious, where is that for you? And then let's look at what's really going on, because all of us are capable, truly capable of attaining goals that we want to have. All of us are capable of being in great relationships. We might have some work to do to make sure that who we bring to the table is the best version of ourselves. But yet and we're doing that, except we're then still picking the same kind of. So self-sabotage is really, it's your mind's way, and I'm going to say more specifically than just your mind, your ego's way of protecting you. So we all have an ego. It's just part of being a human being. There's nothing wrong with having an ego. A lot of times people are very ego driven. So everything they do gets chosen by the ego, but the ego is a part of all of us. And the ego's job is really to make sure that you're protected. The ego's number one job is to keep you safe. So especially when we've developed an identity to be living life in a certain way, we have an identity, even if it's not a great way, even if it's not the way that brings us the most fulfilling relationships or the best health, but we feel very familiar and safe there. Like, let's just say with health, choosing foods that make us feel comfortable. So we start off with a diet. Okay, it's Monday morning, I'm starting a diet. And by Thursday, we're eating the same foods that we tried to cut out in our diet because our identity has become around a certain pattern and way of being. And that feels very safe. When we start to make changes, when we start to step out of our comfort zone, in whatever way that might be, the ego feels threatened. The ego says, oh, this isn't safe. Oh, you haven't done this before. Oh, no, no, no. That's a great relationship. We're used to really difficult relationships that require a lot of struggle. The ego might say, no, don't go for that job, or don't put yourself up for that promotion, because that's going to be scary for you. That's going to require you to step up and do some things differently. That's going to be a challenge. There's nothing wrong with a challenge, but your ego's job is to say, this is scary, this is unfamiliar. I'm going to call you back into being safe. So this morning, I do coffee conversations several mornings a week, and you may have seen that this was this morning's topic, which I just talked about for a couple of minutes over a cup of coffee. But I wanted to just go a little bit deeper so that you can start to look and see, what are the things that I tell myself when I am self-sabotaging? So I've worked with a lot of clients who are like, I know I should be doing this every day, but I just don't. Okay, so in that moment, what do you say to yourself? Because that's going to be a clue as to where you don't feel safe. Or it'll at least be a clue to your ego's thought patterns that kick in. So you want to look and notice, what are the things that kick in for me when I am stopping myself in an area that I would like to move forward. So it might be, and here's why this is important, because it's very tricky. It's very manipulative. The things that we say to ourselves when the ego is at the driving wheel and the ego's saying, I need to keep her safe. Like, this is not going to go well for her. I want her to be safe, which also means small and familiar. So the ego will say things that sound really reasonable, really make sense in the moment. So it might be, let's just say you're a mom and a wife, and you have some health goals, regular exercise, something like that. But your ego is going to say, oh, no, you don't have time for that right now. You need to do this around the house, or this child needs you more. And it sounds really reasonable. Like, yeah, I need to do that because that is who I am. I'm the mom here in the household, so that is more important. So it might be things like that. Come put your attention over here, because here is where you know yourself to be familiar. Or let's say it's at a job and you want to be moving up, and there's certain things that would make a difference in your job, whatever it is. Certain projects you could take on, or certain things you could volunteer for. And so you do that, but then you procrastinate, and then you're really up against stress. Like, I need to be doing this. I have this deadline and I'm not getting it done. And the things that you might be saying to yourself, or even before you take on the project, no, I really can't do that. I don't have enough time. That's not going to work out. I can't get it done. Somebody really with better skill set, it's better for them. Or I'm going to take away from my family if I take that on again. It's going to sound very reasonable, and it's going to sound like it makes sense, and it's going to lure you away. It's like, come back over here, Linda. Come back over here, Susie, where it's safe and familiar. The truth is, you could absolutely get it done. It may take something that different than you've ever done before. It may take rearranging your time. It may take going out of your comfort zone, but it's totally possible, except that feels scary. So the ego says no, and the ego really kicks in strongly when it perceives that the old identity needs to die in order for this new opportunity, this new relationship with your health, this new way of being around your health and your body, when it perceives that those things are going to require the death of the old identity, and they will require the death of the old identity. You cannot attain and create new things doing it the old way, right? You just can't. So the ego says, well, that's not good. I don't want the old identity to die. I want that old identity to stay in place. That old identity, we worked long and hard on creating that old identity, which lets me know exactly where I can go, what my ceiling is, what my comfort zone is, and I'm not going to do anything outside of that. And here's another place to look around self-sabotage. We all have certain things that make us feel better, and we'll default to those things when we're avoiding the new way of being or the new goal, or we're procrastinating against something. So it might be, let me just sit down and watch this show, or, oh, I love this series on Netflix. Let me just do that first. Or, I already blew it today with my diet. I might as well keep going and I can always start again tomorrow. Or, at work, I don't need to go for this one. Another opportunity will come up. This one right now, it just doesn't feel right for this reason and this reason. It just doesn't feel like it's for me. So I'm going to let it pass and another opportunity will come up. Oh, okay, now I feel better. So we have certain ways of soothing ourselves, like watching some Netflix or eating some food or not committing in our schedule so that we stay where we are. Those things are like a pacifier for a baby. It's like the thing, like the cozy blanket, like Linus's, is it Linus in the Charlie Brown? Linus had that dirty blanket. You know what I mean? It's like the blanket that makes us go, oh, yeah. Okay, whew, I feel better now. I feel like myself. So what are your pacifiers that you turn to? Because when those are showing up, that's your ego. That's like when you have little kids and they're crying and you go, okay, here, just take this pacifier, just here, be quiet, right? And then they take it and they're quiet. And you're like, phew, same thing. Your ego's going, no, wait, don't start that yet. Just spend a little more time on social media. Just scroll through here a little more and then you can get started. Or, like I said, just let that opportunity go. There'll be another one soon. You need to stay over here and focus here. Or in relationships, let's say that you always choose somebody who's not really emotionally available. Let's go with that one, right? So you always choose somebody who's not really emotionally available. They're interesting, they have a lot to talk about, but there's always kind of like a wall in that relationship, in that relationship, in that relationship. You kind of always get a different version of the same thing, which is not emotionally available. So maybe your pacifier for that is to try extra hard for them. Try to nurture them a little more. So even though you feel unfulfilled, your pacifier is, well, I'll just keep trying harder. He's really great. I need to just try a little bit harder over here, and then it's going to be fine. So now you've just given up on your dream of a great relationship where you don't have to be trying harder like that, where you just, click in all the ways that you want to click. So those are the ways that self-sabotage shows up. But if you can really discern what are the thoughts that I tend to say and tell myself in order to stop myself, and really look to see, is that true or is that me just manipulating myself? The ego is very manipulative. So, in the work that I do with clients, we do a few things to really hone in on this. One thing that we do is tease out our identity, the identity we created in the past. Because once we really tease that out and have that like out on the table, we can see where it doesn't serve us and when we might want to choose something else instead of it automatically kicking in that old identity. So there's some identity work to do. Then there's also getting comfortable with letting go of the pacifier, getting comfortable with releasing that old blanket that we hold on to, the things that make us feel comfortable, getting comfortable in being uncomfortable, getting comfortable outside your comfort zone. That just takes practice. There's no magic bullet really about that, except you need to start practicing it. And there's ways to sort of build up to it. But practicing being out of your comfort zone, because mediocrity is what you're going to get in your comfort zone. When you stay in your comfort zone and you stay listening to your ego and you let those self-sabotaging trains of thought, you agree with them and you listen to them, you keep yourself in mediocrity. Okay, so those are the places that we need to go to work. Our comfort zone, our identity, releasing what our pacifier is, figuring that out, creating a new identity. You need a new identity to step into, or it's like a vacuum. You're going to end up right back in the old if you don't have something new to step into. That's critical, because without that guidance, without that new thing pulling you forward, without like a future to live into, like when you have a vacation planned and in 6 weeks you're going to Europe and you live into that future each week, like you're thinking about where you're going to go when you're there, and then you're thinking about what clothes you're going to wear and what shoes you're going to bring, and you're thinking about the weather, how it's going to be. It's a future that you're living into. It's calling you to be. You need that new identity as well to live into and to call you to be. Or else, if there's nothing there, then like a vacuum, you're going to get sucked right back in to the old one. Okay? So it's not like you've got like a malfunction or a flaw. You have an ego, but so do we all. And we all have our level where our ego will kick in to protect us. And another thing actually that I didn't mention is we have to work with the ego. We have to really let it know that you don't need the protection anymore. At one point you did, but now you don't. So that's another piece of that. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. I hope it gives you some freedom around feeling like you're always stuck. Well, like, why is that? So that you can start to dismantle that mechanism of your ego and its manipulative way of managing your thoughts and not listening to it. Okay? If you have any questions, or if you really want the guidance and the tools that go along with those 4 things I mentioned and how to do it, you just need to let me know. And I'm happy to share with you the ways that I work with people, what that can look like, what you can expect, what kinds of outcomes people get. Okay, so drop me a message if you're interested in getting that. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Unconditioned Life. And I'm looking forward to hearing, where that shows up in your life, and just reading your hello when you drop a line. Okay, so thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.